Welcome to American Dreams. My guest today is David Haase. David, welcome to today's show.
Thanks, Alan.
So, David, you have a remarkable background and career. Obviously, a lot of education behind you with those degrees in medicine. And for the listeners here, can you walk us through your journey, how you got to where you are today?
Wow, that's a to be brief, I grew up as a farm boy in South Dakota. And and when you grow up on a farm, you always have to be very practical and, look at the world the way it is. And I got this deep knowledge early on that, life finds a way. And, it's this amazing, I am just incredibly fascinated with life and biology my entire life. So that took me into medical school, and I went into Vanderbilt, Mayo Clinic, and I really had this epiphany sometimes walking down in one of the Mayo Clinic hospitals that, wait a second, I didn't really go to medical school for this. I went to medical school not just to diagnose and treat disease, which is incredibly important, but I also went to medical school to learn how to create health. And that's an entirely new way of looking at the information that science brings us. And then I realized, wow, I've come full circle. I've basically started to become a farmer of people's health. I've been trying to think of what are all the things that help this organism thrive. Like my father would help the corn thrive or help the cows thrive. I help humans thrive. And so it's been a quarter century of digging into the biology, the psychology, the soul. How do we really get to know people and partner with them to figure out what they want and then use whatever means necessary to get them there. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
So, David, knowing you as a friend, I've heard you on several occasions, and you're very inspiring and as well as passionate about what you're doing and helping people. Let's walk into Dr. Haase's clinic and functional medicine. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your clinic and how services differ from those offered from the primary care providers across the country?
Sure. There's lots of labels given to good medicine. I think I've always striven to just practice good medicine. I've kind of been board certified in holistic medicine, integrative medicine, functional medicine. But I think at the end of the day, it's just how do we apply medicine? So here's a good question. What is medicine? A lot of people think of medicine, oh, that's a drug or that's a procedure. And I would give you that we should change our definition to medicine is anything that creates health. And once we do that, we recognize that the whole of our life experience is filled with both medicines and poisons. And so this my friendship with you is medicine. I mean, it creates health by being in relationship with good people. How I eat can be medicine or poison. Whatever I do has this potentiality. And so when you walk into our clinic, it's really entirely Maxwell Clinic in Nashville, Tennessee. We have about 9 different clinicians here and a whole bunch of technologies. But at the heart is first, how do you see people as an infinitely valuable soul? How do you recognize that this person that you're going to interact with, there's never going to be another one like them? They have a completely unique genetics. They have had a completely unique set of exposures that have crafted the body, brain, and being that is in front of you. And they have a unique set of desires about what do they want from their health. So aside from, how we practice medicine, I think it's important the why we practice medicine. And for any listener out there, I would encourage you to ask yourself the question, what is it that I want my health for? What is your purpose? What is a more full expression of your life mean to the world? What does it mean to you? How are you here to serve? And And as soon as you get really clear on the why, then we can start diving into the what's. All right, well, let's dig in and let's see what are the barriers to your fullest expression of your life capability. And now, we have several practices kind of within our practice. We have kind of our basic, more functional medicine practice for some of my other clinicians. I have a very intensive, small practice, what we call personalized systems medicine, where we really try to push the limit on how well we can know a human, from genomics, from proteomics, from connectomics. I mean, taking big data and deep relationship and towards a purpose of improving people's life and well-being. And I have a real deep interest in brain health. I think the brain is the most fascinating thing, that this organ of bias that we have. You know, every one of us sees the world in a unique way. That's our bias, and that's great. That's what makes us unique. But that bias can be a jailer for our own potential. It causes us not to see things that we may actually need to see in order for us to be the fullest versions of ourselves, to fulfill the life purpose that we're here for. And so I'm always looking for my underlying bias. What might I be missing because of all the things I already know? And that's a real fun place to be. I love learning and the interaction with patients because there's no two that are ever the same.
Yeah, David, I want to jump to regenerative medicine. This is an area that's been developing quickly.
Yeah.
What are some of the treatments in the area of regenerative medicine that most excite you?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, I think we provide one of the most data-backed regenerative therapies that exists in the world today, and that is something we call HOPE. It's actually an acronym for Habitat Optimizing Plasma Exchange. And plasma exchange has been shown to slow, stop, and even reverse the progression of Alzheimer's disease. We have a large multinational, multi-center, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial that shows this is the case. And it's not available very many places because it takes a lot of technology and trained people, et cetera. But we're the largest private center for providing this service in the United States. And plasma exchange, and especially our version of it where we're deeply customizing it for the individual, we have recently discharged a 91-year-old man from memory care back to assisted living. We have individuals that had the diagnosis of Alzheimer's that are now doing quite well with functioning on their own. There's so much potential for healing when we enable the body's own healing capacities to do its work. So I have a lot to say about that. I've done quite a bit of speaking on it with a book coming out. That's impressive. But then we also have collaborations with research scientists in the autologous stem cell reprogramming world so that we can actually regrow tissue, regrow damage that has occurred in the body. This data is strong enough that there are great case series published now of individuals with paraplegia and quadriplegia, with legs that are basically bones with skin over the top, that are now able to walk with canes. Now that's an extensive multi-year process of regrowing the tissue in place. But we've had patients have dense peripheral neuropathy completely reversed, people regrowing the cartilage in their knee, individuals having increased brain capacity. But Alan, because of the relationships I've developed over the last quarter century with really remarkable other clinicians and researchers, it's really about how do you find what's right for you as an individual person. And I think that's where we need to spend a lot of our energy. There are the therapies that are kind of the one size fits all that people get rah-rah about, but it's so important to be curious and apply the right technology in the right individuals. Oh, and you guys said longevity. I started talking about HOPE, habitat optimizing plasma exchange. We've actually run what I believe now is the world's largest study looking at how this particular technology reverses aging in the cells. We have a large data set where, I don't know, have you ever heard of transcriptomics? This gets really nerdy really fast, okay? But what's so important is that you have genomics. So omics, means like ohm means everything. And so you have genomics, and that's all the genes. And then what you can measure is the RNA. We call that transcriptomics. So RNA are the little messages that DNA makes that tells the body what protein to make. And so it is the step that tells us what DNA is turned on in the body. And we have the technology to actually measure the RNA that is in a single cell. Take one single cell and measure what DNA is turned on in that cell. And then we do that 500,000 to 1 million times so that we can see what a population of cells are doing. And since we know what young cells do, so young cells have certain genes turned on, old cells have certain genes turned on, we were able to show that our process was able to take old cells and make them behave young again. And then young stem cells do the work of healing. Young stem cells, because you have stem cells everywhere in your body. If you cut your hand, those stem cells in your skin, in your vessels, all activate and they start making repairs. They start laying down new tissue. They start doing the work of healing. And a little baby gets a cut and it's just a couple of days. And we're like, I thought they had an injury and they're better. You take an older person, 90-year-old, and has that same cut. It takes forever for it to heal because the stem cells, the older stem cells are behaving old. And if you can get those older stem cells to behave young, they start healing all kinds of tissue. And we are able to show that with one of the most difficult to treat conditions in the world, which is Alzheimer's, right? We're actually seeing changes in what is doing the single most difficult thing to treat in the world and a very important age-related condition. And so in animal models, it's been shown very clearly to reverse osteoporosis, to bring their sense of smell back. So their hair starts growing in more thickly. Their immune system starts to behave in a younger fashion. So it becomes more specific. It's remarkable to think about how do you treat the body-wide stem cell behavior. That's a different way of thinking than treating a disease. This is all about how do we understand how to create health.
So I'm going to take this into personal experience. I had one stem cell treatment. It was a little vial that was, put into me through I think they might have told me to breathe it in. I don't remember what they did, but they said that the stem cells were taken from umbilical cord of cesarean section, and it was all medically approved and certified, and that these were all from the delivery, and that by putting these cells into my system, they would then go and they would begin to repair parts of my body. Well, the reality is I felt amazing, and I'm like, this is amazing. And so in the follow up with the doctors, I learned some more things in what you just indicated about the stem cell therapy. Now, I understand that there are some therapies with approval here, and there are others where you got to go out of the country. I don't know, what much about this, but let's just talk about you and what you're able to do inside of your program in clinical trials. What how can you help an individual right now that says, "Hey, David, I don't mind experimenting. Tell me what you can do for me."
Wow, I don't know where we start or end on that one. I think that what's most important, I'm going to always start out with diagnosis. Knowing where am I is so important. Where am I with biological age? What are the things that are impeding my body's own ability to heal? Do I have a load of toxins, infections, allergens? What's holding me back? Do I not have, understanding very clearly, do you have enough good things? Do you have enough hormones, nourishment? Are you getting enough oxygen? What's your lifestyle like? Those are important things to do. And then you go into what things are, what kind of dysfunctional patterns are available? Do you have brainwave patterns that have moved and you're actually causing problems in how the brain functions? So we can actually retrain brain waves so that they function more effectively. But when you're thinking about cellular therapies and the regenerative therapies specifically, we can do therapeutic plasma exchange immediately. And why I call this HOPE, habitat optimizing plasma exchange, is because all of your stem cells that are in your body right now exist in a habitat. That habitat is your plasma. That's the fluid that's floating around your body. That plasma is giving you the information to your cells to tell your cells how to behave. If you want to change cellular behavior, you change what messages those cells are getting. When you got the infusion of those placental cell products, the cells release something called exosomes, and those exosomes have little packets of RNA in them, and that will then merge with other surrounding cells, insert some messages to say, hey, behave younger. That's putting something in your body in order to change the messaging. And that can be powerful. You said, hey, I felt this immediately. But what's actually probably more important is, what do you remove from your body? What kind of dysfunctional signals are in your body that are keeping you old? And this is a revolutionary idea, that your habitat is what shapes how your stem cells behave. So, when you're around a bunch of younger people who are alive or into life, we experience this at Strategic Coach. When we're around a lot of people who are alive and thoughtful and going for it, have a bigger future, guess what? That rubs off on us, doesn't it? We are very much the product of our habitat. And so we actually do both. This is where we blend plasma exchange, which removes a lot of the impeding signals, things we call cytokines or misfolded proteins or oxidated molecules, that removes those negative signals from the body. And then what happens is, for the transmission of a signal, you really want to have a low noise level. Because, if we're speaking here, it's quiet in the background, so we don't have to yell. But if we were in a noisy auditorium, we couldn't be speaking this way because there'd be so much noise everywhere. That's the same thing in the plasma. The plasma is filled with signals. And for any one signal to be heard, there's a lot of signal to noise that you need to optimize for. If you can clear out the body, decrease the noise, then signals that you may put in, like stem cell products, exosomes, all of those things, get an opportunity to have more of an impact than they would have otherwise. So this is a really important optimization strategy. And we can talk a lot more about other stem cell procedures and things like that, but that's something we can do right now. It's and I always look at it, there's basically 6 different steps. You first imagine, right? You got to imagine, who's ever out there listening, you have to imagine that something could be better first. If you can't get that in your head, you're sunk. And if you can't deal with the fact that you have some degeneration or problems, then you're sunk. Denial is a terrible disease. And then once you imagine something, then you need to examine. You got to take a look at what is the situation? Where am I? What's going on? Accurate, thorough diagnosis. And then you replenish good things that you're missing. You remove bad things that are inhibiting you. You retrain those dysfunctional patterns that are holding you back, and you repair things that have already been damaged. And I think that sums up what good health care should be. And then you just keep going around the cycle and reimagine. And it's a great adventure all the time too, because no two people are the same in this process.
So David, if a person wants to reach out for your services, sign up for your programs, how do they do that?
Yeah, go to www.maxwellclinic.com. That's as in maximizingwellness.com. So it's actually maxwellclinic.com. And we have contact information there. We've got great new patient coordinators that will talk to you about what's going on and see, what would be the right fit for somebody in their particular set of circumstances. And I think it's so important to always recognize the value of your life. I mean, this is a miraculous gift that we've been given. And caring for ourselves, caring for those that are around us, caring for our world is what we're here for. And that we try to really remember that because I do really believe that love is actually the most important therapeutic that exists. And in healthcare, we need to make certain that there's plenty of caring. So we make those attempts, and I think that's just always something that I'm always shocked by how many people don't think as carefully about their own needs as they should. So I just want to encourage people to recognize that they are infinitely valuable and they are infinitely important and they are needed in this world in a way that nobody else can fill their shoes. And yeah.
Well, Dr. Haase, I appreciate you being with us here today on American Dreams. Unfortunately, we're running up against time. May have you come back for a second segment. There's a lot of things that we can delve deeper into, but I think you've given a very, very good overview of some of the things that you're working on in functional medicine today.
Thank you very much, Alan. It's great to be here.